Hi again, everyone. All right, I am back, and another sketch watercolor I want to do for you, but I want to probably do this in two parts with the setup, the layout, the drawing first. Then I think I will pause and do a second video of the watercolor after. I am monitoring comments and input from you all. And yeah, obviously there's a differing opinions. Some people don't care about seeing the drawing section. Some people really do. So I think if I do it in two parts, you can choose which you'd like to focus on for your own entertainment or help, or both. Maybe you like both. But I think this way breaks it up and makes it more palatable for more people. In any case, I'm recently back from a teaching trip to Rome. I go most every year and I love that place. But every time I go, it's like I've never been before. There's just so much history, old and new things cropping up all the time. There's just endless things to learn and appreciate. And it is a living museum of a city. It's phenomenal. In any case, this little corner I want to focus on today is an area called the Largo di Torre Angentina, which I believe means roughly the square of the Silver Tower. So this was an ancient gathering spot in Rome. This area grew up largely from about the 4th to the 1st century BC. So it's quite ancient. And there was a large open square. There were merchants here, hence the silver context. So merchants were here. There were temples, 4 specific temples, pavilions, and also somewhere near the center are the remains of the original theater of Pompeii. History says that most likely Julius Caesar was murdered somewhere here within the confines of this square. So anyway, for all you history buffs, there's that. But as a painting, what is it I'm looking at here that I like? If you look at reference photos, I always warn people, learn from them, but don't feel the need to copy them. If you do, you're just going to end up with crazy, busy, probably very flat paintings that have no real sense of depth or dimension, or any real focus or narrative. So what I like about this is it's quite ancient. So the modern streets are raised up above, which happens a lot in ancient Greek and Roman cities. The modern city builds up around. So what I mean is by that, the aspects of this, you can walk down around these ruins, but most people see it from this elevated point of view from the modern street above. So we're looking slightly down at this assembly of 2 of these pavilions, and I just loved the mixture of textures, surfaces, solids, voids, colors in this case, the greens, the reds, the siennas, the ochres, the greens of these very Romanesque cypress and pine trees sticking up. And I just loved all the collision of textures, elements of time banging together, all these different things coming together. So the intention for the drawing, or the painting I want to do, will be to sort of convey some of that. That's sort of what I hope to be pleasant chaos. All different things from different times crashing into one another. So because we're looking from slightly above, the horizon line will be elevated and we'll be looking down a bit at these elements. One objection I've heard on my ever so vocal YouTube commentary list is that my drawings are hard to see because they're light. And I understand that, so I'm going to try to compensate by darkening some of my line work at least a bit so it's a little easier to discern. Also, translating from my camera to YouTube uploads is something else I need to figure out, because sometimes they downgrade they automatically, I don't choose to do it, but they downgraded the resolution just because some of my videos are longish and not always the way to go. In any case, I'll try to draw with a little bit more clarity so as not to waste anyone's time. Love the shapes of these pavilions. They're just circular in nature with these low conical tile roofs on. And these two together make a really nice assembly, especially this was a quite bright sunny day. I'm a big fan of indirect lighting and softer light, or even rainy day light, but in this case, for this, I want to show some pretty bright sun, some pretty saturated shadows, and a little bit more graphic approach than I might normally tend to take. No, I'm not locating vanishing points or anything. I'm really trying to replicate how I'm doing this all freehand and just estimating or guesstimating where vanishing points might fall as a way to help me to just speed up, loosen up, and be a little more informal, and also in a sense to replicate how this might play out if I were sketching or painting this plein air, which I did quite a lot of in Rome just a couple weeks back. Boy, you forget, I love painting plein air, and I do it regularly, but every time I'm in a place like this, I just think I don't do it enough. Not just because it's fun, but because, yeah, it's just very useful, even if you're pretty much a studio painter. It's just, you learn very useful techniques when you're drawing or painting live on site. You learn how to, among other things, how to decide on a composition quickly, how to not overthink, I suppose, is the bigger benefit. If you're really on site, outside, obviously you're fighting against changes of light. Sun is shifting all the time, but also, you know, your body gets a little tired after an hour or two. So a fast painting is not always a better painting, just in general. I think that's fair to say. But there's something great to be learned from being able to paint or sketch quickly that you can apply to even much more studied or time-consuming studio work. Just the ability to be decisive, to make decisions, to trust yourself and to trust your artistic instincts is pretty invaluable. If you're anything like me, you can just think a subject to death, and it makes it hard to know where to put the brush or what to do, or if you're doing the right thing, or should you do something else. And sometimes you just have to say to yourself, just do it. Stop torturing yourself. This pavilion has this really beautiful deep set window, which I want to feature. I'm not really attempting, as ever with me, I want to paint more of an experience than a travel log painting. Meaning, there are times when you want to be 100% accurate with every detail. And there are more times, I think, when that kind of approach isn't particularly helpful, can even get in your way. And generally, I suppose I try to paint my experiences of a place rather than attempting to do photographic copies. That is why we have cameras, after all. And I don't know, it is my attitude, and you don't need to share it, but I believe it's certainly the opportunity, if not the job of the artist, to not paint exactly what he or she is looking at, but rather to paint what you see. By that I mean, what do you feel? What are you experiencing? And in that attempt, it sometimes then becomes necessary, or advantageous at least, to edit reality, to edit exactly what you're looking at and make it slightly different. You know, by adding a window here or there, or moving a tree, or changing a sun angle. All these things are in your power, and none of them are wrong to do. I really do adamantly feel that. There may be those who wish you didn't do that, or think you shouldn't do that, but I'm not one of them. I think that's the great joy of being an artist. Now, I suppose if you're painting a very iconic building in Rome, for example, the Pantheon, I would even have problems with somebody changing too much about the Pantheon if they're actually painting it. I don't think it needs to be 100% technically precise, but certain buildings like that have earned a little more respect than perhaps more everyday run-of-the-mill structures we might see. Anyhow, I'm happy to have that discussion or argument with anybody that wants. Many, many years ago, of course, a lot of painters were hired by commission to paint scenes of cityscapes, or portraits, if you will, city or building portraits that looked exactly like what was there, because they were travelogues, they were historians, they were making a historical record of what was there, because photographic evidence was not yet possible. But that, of course, has all changed. It's a little bit on my mind of late. Somebody took me to task on another social media site for, how did he phrase it? Architectural misrepresentation is the way he put it. I think his point was, he thought it was my responsibility to draw or paint absolutely exactly whatever it was I was looking at. And all I can say is I profoundly disagree with that. But, you know, that's what makes the world great, huh? Our ability to disagree. So as I said when I started, one of my goals for doing this painting, one of my intentions, is to celebrate a little bit, to amplify the chaotic, the busyness. So to that end, I'm drawing on a piece of Baohong paper. This is a Chinese paper I love. It has a very distinctive and expressive texture, tooth to it. It's rough surfaced. It's Baohong Master's Choice paper, rough surface. I love it. It's a little bit like painting on the lunar surface. but I do pull it out when I want to really emphasize texture or graininess. And I think for this kind of ancient subject, emphasizing the graininess and the texture is going to just help me along and feel appropriate to what it is I'm painting. I've said it a million times because I believe it, but of all the art materials you can buy, none is more important than the piece of paper you choose to paint on. The painting surface is everything. And I know watercolor paper is not cheap, but to the best of your ability, I urge you to even just get a block of Arches paper. It's not terribly expensive, but just a good quality watercolor paper will change how and literally why you paint. It's just going to feel so much better. I'm taking some elements off this other angle, some little hints of the original theater back here, some of the columns that don't really show in this angle, but I'm working them in here. Again, taking liberties so people online can get angry with me. But this is, for the record, a way I love to work. And by that I mean using multiple reference photos and then sort of designing your own scene from them. It's not for everybody, probably, but I think it is a valid option. You can see a lot of the Roman architectural, more modern architectural context beyond. I'm thinking about how I want to treat that, or if I want to just leave it out altogether. And I think perhaps I'm just going to edit it away. I don't think it's going to add anything to my composition. So I'm going to treat the background. I'll show a few of these columns sticking up to keep in the ancient context. And I think that's about all. I think I'm not going to show any of the city jutting up from behind. I think it would only detract and distract. So it's one of my biggest problems I have with my students who love to use reference photos to paint. I get it, but just give yourself the liberty, the freedom to not feel obligated to draw every little thing that the reference photo shows you, or even the way it shows you. Please just realize that you're in charge, you're in the driver's seat. You don't have to draw every little element that's in the photograph just because it's in the photograph. It is not going to make a better painting. It's probably going to make a worse, at least a much busier painting than you might want. So there's a little, well, there's not little, but there's this craggy remnants of a wall and some columns up front. I don't want to make too much out of it, so I'm being fairly gestural and sketchy about them. Oh, I did do a little value study I should share. So here what I've tried to do is isolate where I want the light. It will be on the left side pavilion, a little bit here on the ground, a little glint of light showing from behind the second pavilion, the this cypress tree, dark, throwing this pavilion largely into shadow, a shadow on the ground, covering up all this stuff I'm drawing gesturally now, and then creeping up the front of this pavilion. The real light in the painting I want to preserve here, and then most of the background will just be mid-tone. So in keeping with my value thinking, 1 is the lightest, 2 is mid-tone, 3 is the darkest. So 3, 3, 3, 3, sort of sandwiching my light here. Everything else just supporting cast members. It's a pretty simple value design, but I think because of all the bits and pieces of this composition, the sort of complexity of it all, a more simple value design will help it read, I believe, more clearly. Down here, there's bits of marble facing that have fallen off over the centuries, chunks of old columns and walls. I did a painting a little while ago of somewhere in the Roman Forum. Just so moving and meaningful to me. My little nephew saw it and said, "Nice painting, but why don't they clean up their yard?" Because it was littered with priceless antique artifacts of columns, temples, etc. Ah, yes. Why don't you clean up your yard? So again, all this will just be in shadow and gestural, a little bit of clarity here, which I'm hoping will carry most of the painting. I love these beautiful pines that you see in Italy, but especially all over Rome. But again, this is something that shows in the reference photo that I'm wondering if I really need at all in my painting. Probably not. But I'm also thinking perhaps the addition of some additional texture and color back here may in some way help. So I'll sketch it in lightly, and I'm uncertain if I want to include it or not. If I do, it's going to be very much in the background. I think that's it. Again, the light is going to hit this pavilion most strongly. I want a path of light here creeping on the more flat part of the site, wrapping down the ancient wall. This second pavilion I want largely in shadow, and this dark tree here will frame the view, I think, nicely. So I'll get sort of this intricate dark shape hugging the light here, here, and here. Mid-tone in the back, dark in the foreground. Okay, I'm gonna go set up my palette to get ready for paint, and I will be back with you shortly. Thanks for watching so far.